Good morning, children. Today we shall start a new chapter in Supplementary Reader, The Making of a Scientist. Let us begin. How did a book become a turning point in Richard Ebright's life? How did his mother help him? At the age of 22, a former Scout of the Year excited the scientific world with a new theory on how cells work. Richard H. Ebright and his college roommate explained the theory in an article in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. It was the first time this important scientific journal is a newspaper or it can be a magazine also, important scientific journal had ever published the work of college students. In sports, that would be like making the big leagues at the age of 15 and hitting a home run your first time at bat. Now see, children, at the bottom of the page, the meaning of a home run is given. A home run in the game of baseball is when the batter scores a run after running safely around all bases and back to the home plate without stopping. A ball hit out of the playing field is also called a home run. Getting a paper published at the age of 15 in a scientific journal is here compared to scoring a home run while batting for the first time. I am reading this line once again. In sports, that would be like making the big leagues at the age of 15 and hitting a home run your first time at bat. For Richard Ebright, it was the first in a long string of achievements in science and other fields. And it all started with butterflies. An only child, Ebright grew up north of Reading, Pennsylvania. There wasn't much I could do there, he said. I certainly couldn't play football or baseball with a team of one. But there was one thing I could do, collect things. So he did. And did he ever? That means his passion of collecting things continued throughout his life. Beginning in kindergarten, that is KG, beginning in kindergarten, Ebright collected butterflies with the same determination that has marked all his activities. He also collected rocks, fossils and coins. I am sure you have heard of fossils in science. You know what are fossils. They are remains of prehistoric plant or animal which are embedded in rocks. So he collected rocks, fossils and coins. He became an eager astronomer too, sometimes stargazing all night. From the first, he had a driving curiosity along with a bright mind. He also had a mother who encouraged his interest in learning. She took him on trips, bought him telescopes, microscopes, cameras, mounting materials and other equipment and helped him in many other ways. I was his only companion until he started school, his mother said. After that, I would bring home friends for him. But at night, we just did things together. Richie was my whole life after his father died when Richie was in 3rd grade. She and her son spent almost every evening at the dining room table. If he didn't have things to do, I found work for him. Not physical work, but learning things, his mother said. He liked it. He wanted to learn. That means he was from his childhood a curious learner, an enthusiastic learner who was always eager to do something new, to learn something new. And learn he did. He earned top grades in school. On everyday things, he was just like every other kid, his mother said. By the time he was in the second grade, Ebright had collected all 25 species of butterflies found around his hometown. That probably would have been the end of my butterfly collecting, he said. But then my mother got me a children's book called The Travels of Monarch X. That book, which told how monarch butterflies migrate to Central America, opened the world of science to the eager young collector. Now, what is a monarch butterfly? It is a large orange and black colored butterfly, mostly found in North America. At the end of the book, readers were invited to help study butterfly migrations. They were asked to tag butterflies for research by Dr. Frederick A. Urquhart of the University of Toronto, Canada. Ebright's mother wrote to Dr. Urquhart, and soon Ebright was attaching light adhesive tags to the wings of monarchs. Anyone who found a tagged butterfly was asked to send the tag to Dr. Urquhart. The butterfly collecting season around reading lasts 6 weeks in late summer. If you are going to chase them one by one, you won't catch very many. So the next step for Ebright was to raise a flock of butterflies. He would catch a female monarch, take her eggs, and raise them in his basement through their life cycle, from egg to caterpillar to pupa to adult butterfly. Then he would tag the butterfly's wings and let them go. For several years, his basement was home to thousands of monarchs in different stages of development. I hope you know what is a monarch by now. It's one of the big butterflies. Eventually, I began to lose interest in tagging butterflies. It's tedious, that means it is time taking. It is tedious and there's not much feedback. Ebright said. In all the time I did it, he laughed. Only 2 butterflies I had tagged were recaptured, and they were not more than 75 miles from where I lived. Then, in the 7th grade, he got a hint of what real science is when he entered a county science fair. County is a region, a science fair which was organized in a specific region. I am reading this again. Then in the 7th grade, he got a hint of what real science is when he entered a county science fair and lost. It was really a sad feeling to sit there and not getting anything while everybody else had won something. Ebright said. His entry was slides of frog tissues which he showed under a microscope. He realized the winners had tried to do real experiments, not simply make a neat display. Already, the competitive spirit that drives Richard Ebright was appearing. I knew that for the next year's fair, I would have to do a real experiment, he said. The subject I knew most about was the insect work I had been doing in the past several years. So he wrote to Dr. Urquhart for ideas, and back came a stack of suggestions for experiments. Those kept Ebright busy all through high school and led to prize projects in county and international science fairs. For his 8th grade project, Ebright tried to find the cause of a viral disease that kills nearly all monarch caterpillars every few years. Ebright thought the disease might be carried by a beetle. He tried raising caterpillars in the presence of beetles. I didn't get any real results, he said. But I went ahead and showed that I had tried the experiment. This time I won. The next year, his science fair project was testing the theory that viceroy butterflies copy monarchs. Viceroy butterflies is another category. The theory was that viceroys look like monarchs because monarchs don't taste good to birds. Viceroys, on the other hand, do taste good to birds. So, the more they look like monarchs, the less likely they are to become a bird's dinner. Ebright's project was to see whether in fact birds would eat monarchs. He found that a starling is a bird, a starling would not eat ordinary bird food. It would eat all the monarchs it could get. Ebright said later research by other people showed that viceroys probably do copy the monarchs. This project was placed first in the zoology division and third overall in the county science fair. In his second year in high school, Richard Ebright began the research that led to his discovery of an unknown insect hormone. Indirectly, it also led to his new theory on the life of cells. The question he tried to answer was simple. What is the purpose of the 12 tiny gold spots on a monarch pupa? Everyone assumed the spots were just ornamental. That means God had given these spots just for beauty. Ebright said, but Dr. Urquhart didn't believe it. To find the answer, Ebright and another excellent science student first had to build a device that showed that the spots were producing a hormone necessary for the butterfly's full development. This project won Ebright's first place in the county fair and entry into the International Science and Engineering Fair. There he won third place for zoology. He also got a chance to work during the summer at the entomology laboratory of the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. As a high school junior, Richard Ebright continued his advanced experiments on the monarch pupa. That year, his project won first place at the International Science Fair and gave him another chance to work in the Army laboratory during the summer. In his second year, he went a step further. He grew cells from a monarch's wing in a culture and showed that the cells would divide and develop into normal butterfly wing scales only if they were fed the hormone from the gold spots. That project won first place for zoology at the International Fair. He spent the summer after graduation doing further work at the Army laboratory and at the laboratory of the US Department of Agriculture. The following summer, after his freshman year at Harvard University, Ebright went back to the laboratory of the Department of Agriculture and did more work on the hormone from the gold spots. Using the laboratory's sophisticated instruments, he was able to identify the hormone's chemical structure. A year and a half later, during his junior year, Ebright got the idea for his new theory about cell life. It came while he was looking at X-ray photos of the chemical structure of a hormone. When he saw those photos, Ebright didn't shout Eureka or even I have got it, but he believed that along with his findings about insect hormones, the photos gave him the answer to one of biology's puzzles: how the cell can read the blueprint of its DNA. Blueprint means a plan or a description of how to make or build or achieve something. So, with the photos, he also got an answer to this question: how cell can read the blueprint of its DNA. That means how the cell can read everything about the DNA, how a person can come to know about the whole description of the DNA through the cell. DNA is the substance in the nucleus of a cell that controls heredity. It determines the form and function of the cell. Thus, DNA is the blueprint for life. Now children, on page number 37, there are some lines which are totally missing in my book. I am reading from the second paragraph. The first paragraph is incomplete in my book. So please, you will have to bear with it and you will have to read the first paragraph yourself. Surprising, no one who knew him, Richard Ebright graduated from Harvard with highest honors, second in his class of 1510. That means there were so many students in his class and he graduated from Harvard University, which is worldwide famous, and with highest honors, and he came second in his class. Ebright went on to become a graduate student researcher at Harvard Medical School. There he began doing experiments to test his theory. If the theory proves correct, it will be a big step towards understanding the processes of life. It might also lead to new ideas for preventing some types of cancer and other diseases. All of this is possible because of Ebright's scientific curiosity. His high school research into the purpose of the spots on a monarch pupa eventually led him to his theory about cell life. That means the curiosity to study what was the importance of those golden spots on the body of the monarch pupa. That study eventually led him to the theory about cell life. Richard Ebright has been interested in science since he first began counting butterflies, but not so deeply that he hasn't time for other interests. Ebright also became a champion debater and public speaker and a good canoeist and all-around outdoors persons. That means we can call Ebright an all-rounder. He is also an expert photographer, particularly of nature and scientific exhibits. In high school, Richard Ebright was a straight A student. He was a student of A category. Because learning was easy, he turned a lot of his energy towards the debating and model United Nations clubs. He also found someone to admire, Richard A. Verherer, his social studies teacher and advisor to both clubs. Mr. Verherer was the perfect person for me then. He opened my mind to new ideas, Ebright said. Richard would always give that extra effort. Mr. Verherer said, what pleased me was, here was this person who put in 3 or 4 hours at night doing debate research besides doing all his research with butterflies and his other interests. That means his social studies teacher was very impressed by Richard because he was not only interested in debates, he was equally interested in devoting hours for his research work on butterflies, and he also pursued his other interests at the same time. Because generally we see that if a person starts devoting so many hours per day towards one goal or towards one purpose, then he does not get time to pursue his other interests. But with Richard, this problem never came. He was an all-rounder. He was not only interested in his research work on butterflies, but he was also devoting his attention towards his other interests as well, and was able to divide his time in such a way, in such an intelligent way, that he was able to pursue his other interests at the same time. I am reading this paragraph again, children. Richard would always give that extra effort, Mr. Verherer said. What pleased me was, here was this person who put in 3 or 4 hours at night during debate research besides doing all his research with butterflies and his other interests. Because this is not easy. Pursuing all interests at the same time is very, very difficult. For that, you should have lot of planning in your mind. You should be really interested in all other things. Only then you can devote your attention towards everything. Richard was competitive, Mr. Verherer continued, but not in a bad sense. Competition also is of two types, healthy competition and unhealthy competition. So, although he was of a competitive spirit, but that was a healthy one. He explained, Richard wasn't interested in winning for winning's sake or winning to get a prize. Rather, he was winning because he wanted to do the best job he could. So, what was the purpose behind winning? Not to decorate his house with prizes and medals and trophies. Not to just win for the sake of winning. But he was just having one intention in his mind, that whatever he does, he should do his best. He should put in all his effort. He should try to do his best. And that spirit to do his best made him win so many prizes, so many awards. He was winning because he wanted to do the best job he could. For the right reasons. He wants to be the best. He never wanted to hurt anybody, defeat anybody for any selfish motive, but he just wanted to do his best, and he wanted to win just to show that he has put in all his effort. He has done the best he could. And that is one of the ingredients in the making of a scientist. Start with a first-rate mind, add curiosity, and mix in the will to win for the right reasons. So, the writer is saying that 3 things are essential for a scientist to become a scientist. Starting is with a first-rate mind. First-rate mind. You should have a set goal in your mind. You should be optimistic. You should have a clear purpose in your mind that what you are planning to do. Add curiosity. If you have the goal in your mind, if you have a set goal in your mind, you should be curious to know new things, to find new things, to work upon them, to invent something new, etc., etc. Because if you don't have curiosity, if you don't have eagerness to know something new, then you can't become a scientist, because scientists do new things, they come up with new ideas, they invent something new. So for that, a curious mind is very necessary, and mix in the will to win for the right reasons. If you are curious, you are going in the right direction also, you have a set purpose in your mind, your goal is set, then you should also have the eagerness to win for the right reason. What should be that right reason? Not to bring various prizes and make your parents proud, or decorate your home with that, or just to win for the sake of winning. No, your purpose should be that what you do should achieve your aim, you should be able to accomplish your purpose, and you should also try to put in your best efforts. If you will put your wholehearted effort, if your purpose is set, if you have curiosity, if you are determined, then nobody can stop you from getting success. From the time the book The Travels of Monarch X opened the world of science to him, Richard Ebright has never lost his science curiosity. So how did his interest generate? How did his interest first start? You can say it was initiated when he started reading the book The Travels of Monarch X. When he first read this book, then his curiosity towards science, his inclination towards science got a boost, and that kept on increasing, and he never lost his scientific curiosity ever. His eagerness to do something new in the scientific field, his eagerness to do something which nobody has done, invent something new, to do something curious, that curiosity, that interest kept on increasing, and he never lost his interest in science. His curiosity went on increasing throughout his life. So this is how the writer says that is why the name of the chapter is The Making of a Scientist, because the writer wants to tell us what are the essential components, what are the essential things which are needed if a person wants to become a scientist. You should have a scientific bent of mind, you should have your aim set in your mind, you should be very curious, that is very, very important. You should be eager to learn new things, to identify something new in the world, to invent something new, and to achieve your aim, to win. Win not just for the sake of winning, win not just to win prizes, but to show to the world that whatever you have done, you have given your best. So in this way, the writer gives us a strong message through this chapter, through the life of Richard Ebright. Now again, as I have been telling you earlier, read the chapter, read the all the paragraphs once again. If there is any kind of curiosity, any kind of doubt regarding the chapter, you can message me on my personal number and I will give you the reply. The PDF is there for you with all question and answers. Keep writing them and keep preparing, because if you are now again heading towards the board exam, so please be very careful that you have to know, you must know all the details which are there in the chapter. Even the minutest detail can come in a 1 mark question or in a reference to context in any form. Okay, so be ready for every type of question. Your motive should be the board exam. Prepare accordingly. Thorough reading of the chapter should be done. Frequent reading of the chapter should be done so that you retain things. because everything, children, you can't learn. It's not possible to learn everything by heart. The more you read, the more you will automatically start remembering. All right, so read the chapter. In case of any doubts, any query, you can always message me. Thank you. Have a nice day.